На борт, быстро все на борт.
Did you see that? The war in Israel has reached Russia. As the Israeli forces escalate attacks on Hamas, Israelis abroad find themselves at risk. On Sunday, tensions exploded in a Russian region. A mob stormed an international airport. This happened in Dagestan. It is a Muslim-majority region in Russia. People here are angry with Israel. And yesterday, this anger exploded. The locals received some reports. They said a flight from Tel Aviv was landing in Dagestan, and this report unleashed chaos. In no time, a mob showed up at the airport. They broke past security checks. They were looking for Jewish passengers. They asked the airport staff, and I'm quoting, "Where are the Jews?" And soon this mob reached the runway. They surrounded the planes. They started shouting, "Allahu Akbar."
Allahu Akbar!
MashaAllah.
It was a scary and dangerous situation. Some passengers were leaving their planes. When they saw the mob, they rushed back inside, but the mob was out of control. They broke glass doors. They stopped passengers and asked for their passports. Some people managed to get out safely, but outside the airport, more protesters were waiting for them, presumably part of the same mob. And what were they doing outside? They were stopping cars. They were checking passports of passengers, basically looking for Jews.
They hit with their hands and feet to break through the fence and grill. Here are our cobblestones which they hurled at us. They have also started to crash everything in custom offices and the booths. We are building a spiritual center together. Some of them climbed on top. They destroyed things on the first floor.
Thankfully, there were no casualties. No Israelis were injured, but this was a targeted attack, and it was not the only one. On Saturday, a hotel was overrun in Dagestan. People heard that there were Jews at this hotel, and they threw stones at the hotel's windows. As it turned out, there were no Jews inside. After this, the hotel put up a sign. This is what it said: "Entrance strictly forbidden to citizens of Israel." And in the bracket, it says Jews. Now, Israel has expressed concerns over these events. It has asked Russia to protect Israelis and Jews. But the fire is clearly spreading. Not far from Dagestan is a place called Kabardino-Balkaria. It has a Jewish center that was set ablaze. Now, both Dagestan and Kabardino-Balkaria are Russian republics. There are 22 such republics. They're all part of Russia, but they enjoy some special rights. They have a high degree of autonomy. They can make their own laws, and often they're dominated by certain groups. Take the case of Dagestan. The name itself means the land of mountains. People from 40 different ethnicities live in Dagestan, but the region is dominated by Muslims. More than 3 million people live in Dagestan. Going by one claim, more than 80% of them are Muslims, and a majority of these residents are Sunni Muslims. In fact, Islam has flourished in Dagestan. This region has some 3,000 mosques, Islamic institutes, and schools. It also has a volatile past. From 2007 to 2017, Dagestan witnessed an Islamist insurgency. A range of militant groups was involved. Russian forces fought these groups and eliminated them. But in 2022, there was fresh unrest. Clashes broke out again, this time over the war in Ukraine. Dagestan had the highest number of casualties in the war, the highest number from Russia. Remember, Putin had called up army reservists to fight the war, and this included people from Dagestan. Apparently, they died in larger numbers in the war. Most of the casualties incurred by Russia were from Dagestan. Reports say in 2022, more than 300 soldiers, Russian soldiers from Dagestan died. This is 10 times the death toll of soldiers from Moscow, and this too led to protests. So the region has a volatile history, and now tensions have broken out again. Israel's operations in Gaza have sparked unrest. Pictures and videos of destroyed buildings, dead bodies, and displaced victims have traveled to Dagestan. They've incited angry mobs like this one. Some of them were carrying the Palestinian flag. They wanted to punish Israel for attacking Gaza. And this is a new security nightmare for Moscow. It wants to avoid fresh trouble. So Russia is blaming these recent events on outside influence.
President Putin yesterday evening and this morning received and is receiving detailed reports on the situation in the Republic of Dagestan from the FSB, the Russian National Guard, and from the head of the Republic. It is well known and obvious that yesterday's events around the airport are largely the result of outside interference, including outside information influence.
Putin has been briefed. He's walking a fine line. So far, he's taken a pro-Palestinian position. Last week, he invited the Hamas for talks at the Kremlin. Both sides discussed the current conflict and the status of hostages. Among them are 8 Russian hostages. Moscow has given Hamas a list asking for their release. But will Hamas comply? They've called Russia their quote-unquote closest friend. They say they're looking for the Russian hostages and will release them soon. What about their ties with Israel? Russia's ties with Israel. Putin and Netanyahu used to be friends, but the war in Ukraine has strained the ties. Israel supported the Ukrainian forces, and that led to a rift. Now, as Israel intensifies attacks on Hamas, the consequences may be felt as far away as Russia.